Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to our queendom. And today is day three. We're going to be talking about mental health. And I am Louise Hicks of L. Hicks Consulting Services, LLC, and your host of this masterclass boot camp that we started in February for Black History Month. And we are celebrating ourselves as queens in reclaiming our legacy as Black queens. So we're just excited to have everyone here and thank you all for coming in to join us and giving us your support and being loyal participants, engaging. And it's just been an exciting week since we started Sunday. And we are now celebrating Women's History Month, which is great. And I'm so happy and excited to have my featured guest here with me, who we have been in collaboration since day one with this, and they are just phenomenal queens. And we have Linnell Williams of the Life Management Group and Sister Cheryl Cross, CEO of Consultant Proficiency Resources. So welcome everybody, and thank you all again for coming in. So we're going to get started with a PowerPoint presentation so that we can kind of recap what we have done since we started on Sunday, actually since we started the overview masterclass back on February 18th for Black History Month. So let me go ahead and share with you my PowerPoint presentation. So give me a minute to do that, and we will recap everything with you. So my PowerPoint, let me get it here. This is where we've been so far and where we're headed to. This is Vision on Board 2024, Part 2, an Aim to Purpose Series Masterclass, our 5-day boot camp presented by L. Hicks Consulting Services. And as I mentioned earlier, we started back in February on the 18th for Black History Month. Then we moved into now celebrating Women's History Month. So we're excited about to have you in. And again, welcome everyone. And we thank you all for being so loyal about coming in and sharing with us, because without you, wouldn't be any us. So here we go. I love these scriptures and I try and share them every day. 3 John 2:2, Beloved, I pray that in every way you may succeed and prosper and be in good health, just as I know your soul prospers. And the one in 2 Timothy, I also love 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. So we want to make sure we look at that word power, because if you don't have that power, you're not going to be able to love if you're suffering in power and of a sound mind. And we're going to introduce ourselves again. I'm Louise Hicks, and we're just going to do a brief introduction. I'm going to allow each one of our queen featured guests to do a brief introduction of themselves. And I am the facilitator of this uh, Reclaiming Our Legacy as Black Queens Boot Camp, Masterclass Boot Camp. And I have a radio podcast that comes on every week, sometimes multiple times a week, aimed AIMED, the number 2 Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, where I talk about anything and everything that will uplift and bring our community, the Black community, to a higher level of consciousness. And I have a bachelor's of social work from California State University, Long Beach. I'm a motivational speaker and I love law. I've practiced law only on myself now because I don't have a license, and I have one. And I'm an award-winning author as well, working on some other books, and I'm a business consultant as well. And now I would like for Linnell to go ahead and share with us who you are quickly. Thank you so much.
Hey, hello everybody. I am Linnell Williams, Jenny of all trades. I always say that. And I have done and still do many things. So I have been in the fashion design industry, interior design, and I've been a paralegal, and I've been in the banking system. And currently, I am a business owner for plus size fashions, which is called Unique. And that's just some of the things that I do. And I'm very, very excited about being a part of this endeavor. Thank you, Miss Louise.
You're most welcome, and I'm excited to have you. And now we're going to have Sister Cheryl Cross to share a little bit about herself.
Yes, greetings, family. I'm Cheryl, and today I'll just like you to know about my other passions. So, in addition to being the CEO of Consultant Proficiency Resources, and the goal for CPR is to, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, the goal is to help you to jumpstart your God-divine purpose. If you currently have a business and you want to expand a product line, or you want to do growth strategy, we assist you in how to expand and grow revenue. And my other passion includes really holistic living. I subscribe to health equals wealth. You can have $1 million, but if you are not healthy to enjoy it, then what good is it? So I'm passionate about living your best life yet. And that is really, as a holistic practitioner, I'm a novice in terms of foraging, and I strongly believe that most of the answers to life stem from the herbs that was created by our creators. So today I hope to share a little bit about the other side of Cheryl, which is my passion for wellness, and giving you a few tips as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that overview of who you are, Sister Cheryl Cross. And we're looking forward to your presentation as well when you get here. So, day one, we went through life is an evolutionary journey, as you all know. And we talked about this as your life. And we're going to evolve together on this journey. And we look forward to getting into mental health today. And I want to give you a little bit of information because we're doing some giveaways, and we've already done some giveaways. Barbara has won, and who else? I can't recall who else has won. And we know we don't have everybody back today because some people have work and other endeavors that they are doing. However, we want to make sure that we understand Proverbs 27:17, where it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man, in our case, so one queen sharpens another, because that's what we should be all about, sharing with one another and helping to sharpen each other's tools by providing information. So I had mentioned before, and I do this every day to let you know that we are crowning a royalty queen on day 5, which will be Thursday, for Black Legacy Queen Award. That's what we're going to have. And the participants will have an opportunity to pick that person by voting on the question that we are going to ask. And we're going to ask the question, I'm giving away $2 million as your reparations. And that's a disclaimer now, because I really don't have $2 million to give away, but we're going to say that we're going to give away $2 million in reparations. So what are you going to do with that money? Do you have your financial matters in order so that you will know how to spend that money? And that's why we're asking this question, because we want our people to be financially literate. And that's so important that we are, because if you don't have financial literacy and you get the $2 million, if we were ever to get reparations, in which we deserve it, what will you do with it? Will you spend it wisely and invest wisely? And whoever wins that grand prize will get the book by Dr. Joy DeGruy. And we did share her interview. Well, no, she was departing information actually about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And we want to share that book with whoever wins. I'd like for you to get her book. So I'm going to be giving away the book, and I'm also going to be giving away the crown. Not necessarily now, this crown that you see here, it may be one like the one I'm wearing. So I'm gonna give away a crown as well as the book for Black Legacy Queen Award. And again, the question is, you just received $2 million in reparations. What are you going to do with that $2 million? And the disclaimer again, not real $2 million, but we will have $2 million for you. So, and then we're going to not just give the grand prize, we're going to have 4 runner-ups. And those runner-ups will get books, because my quote is, reading always opens the mind to great possibilities and opportunities. The more we read, the more we learn, the more knowledge we get, and we need to make sure we apply that knowledge. So the books that will be given away will be the Miseducation, let me move this out of the way, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, who is the founder of Black History Month, and Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. I read that book back in the 1990s, and it's dynamic because it really tells you and gives you information about why we are where we are and why we don't have the wealth, because we slaved through all these atrocities, being beaten, raped, and everything else that you could think of, and for free. So we're deserving of our reparations. And he talks about this in Black Labor, White Wealth. And also, I'm going to give away my book, A Hill to Climb, A Teenager's Battle with Cancer, Depression, and Drug Addiction, that chronicles the true life story of when my son at 14 had cancer, a rare cancer, and all the challenges we face that can be uplifting. So even though it's something that was difficult or challenge, we can turn it into something to uplift somebody who may encounter a similar situation or any type of situation that can come about in their own life. And then the other book is The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Empowerment, Black Economic Power by Dr. Boyce Watkins. So I'm going to be giving away those books as well. So it depends on who gets the most votes. They'll get to pick the book of their choice from these 4. And the first runner-up will get the book that they desire, and so forth. So the next, before we get into our recap, I'm always looking at how we strengthen our Black family, because the Black family, that's the nucleus of where we should be as a Black people. And we know we've been held back so long, almost 500 years now. We've been struggling just to survive, many of us, and just to have the rights that we deserve to have, and know that we're not 3/5 of a person as the Constitution has defined us to be. We are, we have to look at the power of our family, which is that strong male figure. And you see this depicted here with the hand being held tightly, showing the strength of our brilliant melanated people, and how the female is nurturing this baby, being the nurturer and the helpmate of the family. So part of this, the reason I had this vision several years ago, and thankful to these 2 sisters who helped me to bring it to fruition, Cheryl and Linnell, I'm able to give you this vision that I had. And I'm so happy because I'm a strong believer, and I'm this mad Black woman. And that's for motivated and determined to help support and bring our people to a higher level of consciousness, because we need it. And I get excited when I talk about this. So the first day 1 Sunday, we talked about life management and how Linnell got into the various generations and how we came from royalty and how our history has been hidden for so long. And we talked about that and got into life management on how the overall lifestyle that we should be living as Black people. And we, all 3 of us, participated in that. And then day 2, we went to the Great Divide, the disconnect, where I shared Dr. George Frazier's how he showed how we connect those dots and become unified, because that's important, that we as Black people, all of this great divide and the disconnect has been by design to keep us separated. And we brought some great information and shared a woke video about how we as a people have been programmed across the world to be divided. And we are bringing it together, though, thanks to Black social media. Black people are coming together, and we are happy about that. And the recap, I just went through the recap of how we have been conducting ourselves over the past couple of days, and how beautiful and strong, and we are the chosen ones. And that was pointed out a lot. It's just a matter of us having that mindset and a renewing of our minds, because we are the chosen people, and we have to learn to recognize that and understand that. And that's what creating solid relationships was all about yesterday. And that brings us to day 3, which is, we're still on this evolutionary journey now, renewing our minds today, day 3, with mental health. And that's what we're going to get into and give you a presentation on mental health today. And I wanted to put this picture here because we talked about these books yesterday, and that was a recap that had to do with the Great Divide, where I shared these books that I bought and talked about Kyrie Irving, who plays with the Dallas Mavericks, a basketball player. And somebody reminded me yesterday. See, I remembered it today. Who we played with. I couldn't remember it yesterday. But we talked about Hebrews to Negroes, and how Ronald Dalton did all this research and brought it to light about the truth that a lot of us don't know, and the powers that shouldn't be don't want us to know. However, if we do our research and due diligence, we're going to learn who we are. And also, I talked about hidden colors. I have all of this and I've seen it. I haven't read all the books because they're pretty thick books, but I've seen these hidden colors by Tariq Nasheed, where he has multiple guests who have done research. And once we get to the root cause of who we are, we're going to be moving. And I put in here, do the due diligence research. We got to read more. And this is how we're going to connect those dots. How do we have the renewing of our minds to wear our crowns with love, dignity, and integrity and respect? And that's knowing who we are. And with that said, we're going to get into what this is all about today, how we are on this journey in mental health, and how we have to protect our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. So we're going to share a video first. And this video is about 14 minutes. However, I tell you, it's about healing. It's a TED Talk by Denise Francis, and she is the CEO of an organization, and she'll tell you all about it. And then we're going to talk about burnout. Sister Cher is going to tell us how we have to protect our mental health, because we know as the nurturer, we can get burnt out. And then we're going to talk about therapy, the word, the cause of it, and how healing. And you're going to hear a lot of this in this video. So pay close attention to it, because you're going to hear a lot about it. And how our children, I'm going to give a testimonial about our children and how we need to protect our children as well. So with that said, I'm going to stop the share and does anyone have any comments about anything that you heard yesterday? If you do, just make it brief, and just a main point that you thought you brought from what we discussed yesterday. Anyone want to participate and tell us, but make it brief so we can get into the video. If it's something that you'd like to say, what was your takeaway from yesterday? Anyone? Volunteers? Okay. We're
I
going.
love the video that we saw that you showed us with the pastor.
Oh,
That was
thank you.
that was very awesome. Well, I love
Miles
all the
Monroe.
video.
Miles Monroe, thank you. That was a good takeaway, because Miles Monroe shared with us how to unslave ourselves. So that was an exceptional takeaway. And thank you, everybody. I see we have some newcomers on board. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to share a video now, which today is day 3, which we are going into healing and mental health. So without further ado, please pay attention to this. It's about a 14-minute one, but I tell you, you're going to get a lot out of this about healing and how we as women heal ourselves. So let me bring it up to share. And hopefully I won't have trouble with this one like I did with the previous one.
If all Black women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. Black women, did you know you can heal? Did you know you can feel? Did you know you can cry and completely surrender to the tears that are falling out of your eyes? Did you know that the trauma and pain that you've experienced isn't essentially normal? It's just been normalized. Did you know you don't always have to be strong, push through, and carry on? But most importantly, did you know that you are not alone? Because I didn't. I didn't know it was okay to not be okay. I didn't know I can cry and be vulnerable, and neither of them makes me weak. I didn't know I didn't have to always have it together. I didn't always have to have my life together, know what I was doing. I didn't know I can go to church and therapy at the same time. I worried that if I did this, that the strong Black woman trophy would be taken away from me. But does it even belong to me? See, I didn't know that the strong Black woman is the healed Black woman, but I do now. Growing up, I looked up to the women in my family. They were like superheroes to me. They were beautiful, independent, and strong. When I grew up, I wanted to be just like them. I wanted to be a strong Black woman. The whole idea of the strong Black woman seemed like a character in a folk tale to me. She was the unspoken rule, the requirement, the expectation. She wasn't personified just into one woman. She seemed all too familiar to me, almost as if she was family. Her mannerisms echoed the pain and trauma of her ancestors, and her self-silencing behavior became almost second nature to me. The ways of a strong Black woman was never directly taught to me. It was shown to me through the behavior and actions of my mothers, grandmothers, and family. The strong Black woman trope hurts Black women more than it helps them. It tells them that they should be strong and resilient, but doesn't allow them to engage in the behaviors needed to preserve their strength and resilience. If all Black women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. You may be thinking to yourself, how can something so simple as self-love have the potential to heal Black women and possibly even their culture? Well, the answer to that actually lies within the definition itself. Dr. Autumn Griffin defined self-love as the will to protect, nurture, preserve, and celebrate one's emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental health. Self-love goes against all that the strong Black woman is supposed to be. Where the strong Black woman trope says to be selfless, self-love says to be selfish. Where the strong Black woman trope says show no emotion, self-love says explore them. And where the strong Black woman trope says we don't have time for mental health, self-love says make time. Self-love follows the hierarchy of cognition. Reconstructing our thoughts will then influence the way that we feel, which will then influence the way that we behave. And eventually, that will change the way that we treat ourselves. For Black women, this is essentially simple. Because the only thing that the strong Black woman is allowed to be is strong. She's expected to push things under the rug, hide her trauma, suffer in silence. So this isn't simple. There's so much that we have to learn and so much more that we have to unlearn. But lucky for us, self-love is a skill. And with enough practice, it can become a learned behavior. And if mastered, it could be the one missing preventative measure to fight against common mental health issues within the Black community. No longer do we need to suffer in silence with our mental health and traumas. We can begin to heal them. Self-love teaches us how to protect our mental health. It also teaches us how to preserve it. Imagine if we all did this. Imagine the change it will cause. Self-love has the power to change our culture. Because as our daughters watch us learn how to heal, they will learn as well. And eventually, it will be normalized as it is repeated into our culture. Because what is culture if not behaviors passed down from generation to generation? It will be passed down from her daughters to her daughters' daughters to her sisters to her grandmas until it is eventually taken and adopted as culture the same way the strong Black woman trope that silenced us for years has. We could finally fight against the common mental health issues that Black women face by healing the trauma that has been silenced by the strong Black woman trope. It's almost as if every time I try to be anything but resilient, I hear the strong Black woman, almost like an elder, whispering to me, if I can make it through slavery, then you can make it through anything. So hush it up, suck it up, push through, pull it together. People are depending on you. Carry on. I listen as she silences and invalidates me. If all Black women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. I would like to share with you my journey. But first, hi, my name is Denise. I am the founder and CEO of the Self-Love Organization, a wellness club for women of color to prioritize self-love and mental health, to finally end the cycle of transgenerational trauma. I have been on my self-love journey for 10 years, but my story starts at age 9. I'm at my grandmother's house. All the lights are off downstairs except for one ambered light. We're all in the living room, and in that room stands my mother, father, grandparents, and me. And for a reason I am way too young to understand, everyone is screaming. Everyone is upset. Jamaican patois is being flown around the room at a speed that I cannot comprehend. I try to keep up, looking left and right. My head begins to feel like it's spinning. My heart is pounding. My palms are sweaty. I feel weak and tense all at the same time. Their thoughts are echoing in my mind. I close my eyes. And by the time I can open it, I've ran into the bathroom, sitting on the bathroom floor, next to the cold sink. The draft from underneath the door is brushing against my bare feet, and tears are running down my nightgown, and my hands are over my ears. And all I remember is myself repeating and asking myself, what did I do wrong? What could I have possibly done? The funny part is, I'm pretty sure it had nothing to do with me. But that overwhelming feeling was there. And it was in that moment that my self-silencing behaviors began. In that moment, a 9-year-old, crying, clearly and distressed girl decided to be a strong Black woman. I've never seen any of the women in my family cry. No one has ever acted like this before. Something must be wrong with me. So that's what I did. As I started to hear the footsteps of my family coming towards the bathroom door, I quickly wiped off my tears and dried my eyes. And when the door opened, I put on a show. "Denise, are you okay?" they asked. I replied, "You guys were just being too loud." I lied. I knew something was off. I knew something was wrong, but I never brought it up again, and neither did they. It just got pushed underneath the rug. Fast forward, I'm in my prime years of 18. And I just decided to start my self-love journey. Now, this was 10 years ago. I thought self-love was what the media portrayed it to be. Fancy robes, face mask, maybe painting my nails and toes. I was sitting in my favorite class as a freshman at the City College of New York, Intro to Psychology. And as I'm taking my notes and I'm looking up and down at the board, I looked up for the next slide, and at the top, written in bold, big font, it read, anxiety. And as my professor began to explain and share with us the symptoms of this disorder, I started to feel a pit in my stomach, a hole in my chest. I started to sink inside of my seat, and I felt like everyone was looking at me. He had to have been talking about me. And in that moment, I realized all of three things. One, when I ran into that bathroom at 9 years old, 9-year-old Denise was having an anxiety attack. Actually, I have been suffering from anxiety this whole time. And I never knew it because I continuously decided to push it under the rug, silence myself, just so that I can hold that strong Black woman trophy. That overwhelming feeling continued to visit me, but I never addressed it. 2, I realized that if I experienced this at 9, and I'm now figuring about it now, how many more things have I silenced, and for how long? 3, I realized that whatever I've been doing on my self-love journey with these fancy masks and robes isn't working. And if I wanted to see real change, that hierarchy of self-love, change in my behavior, changing my feelings, changing my thoughts, I had to do the external, I had to leave the external work and do the internal work. There was a crying young 9-year-old Black child hidden inside a bathroom for years, trying to tell me something was wrong, but I continuously decided to push her away so that I can push through, carry on, pull it together. It was in that moment that I realized the gap in between self-love and mental health. The two seems to be two separate journeys, but they actually are the same. They hold the same weight. Each one reflects the other. It was in this moment that I realized that if I needed to actually heal, I had to do the work. And to do the work meant that maybe it was time for me to start to look into my emotions and learn who they are. And I did this through self-therapy. What lies in between self-love and mental health is self-therapy. And it is in that space that you begin to form healthy relationships with your emotions, to actually start speaking to that crying inner child. To learn, who is this anxiety? Why is she here? What does she need? And how can I help her? It was in that moment I realized that this whole time I have been coping and not healing. Black women could use self-love to help themselves heal through self-therapy. By studying themselves, questioning themselves, and becoming so aware of themselves that when anxiety comes to visit, they know who she is. They know what she needs. They know how to heal her. I was able to use this method of self-love to self-therapy to reach mental health. Starting a self-love journey is the Black woman's pathway to mental health. And honestly, after doing this journey for all of 10 years, I feel stronger than ever. Self-love is healing, and there is power in healing. There is strength in healing. And I'm happy I know something today that I didn't know before, that the strong Black woman is the healed Black woman. If all women started a self-love journey, we could heal generations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for that. And I hope you got something from this, because when I saw this, I was so excited about it, because it was like God had given it to me, because we were supposed to have a speaker and we didn't get a chance to get a speaker. And I said, well, we're going to have to do it. And guess what? This popped up in my feed. And I said, wow, oh, thank you, PK. She said it was worth the wait because was having a little technical difficulties, but I knew I was going to find that. And what I do when I have issues and things don't work out the way they do, I just go into prayer mode. That's what I did. I went into prayer mode and said, God, I have this. I've had it up here for a while, so why is it not coming up? And I said, it's not going to stop me, because this is something I need to share. And what Denise Francis spoke about was so important, about self-healing and protection, the nourishment and all of that we get. And now we're going to have Sister Cheryl, who is going to come forward, Queen Cheryl, and she's going to give us information about self-love and burnout and all of that, and how we can help ourselves through these stressors that we as Black women face every day, because we face more than any other female in the world, us as Black women. So Sister Cheryl, Queen Cheryl, take it away.
Absolutely. And that was simply beautiful. It's a great segue to what we're going to just touch on briefly, because again, the rabbit hole is indeed very deep. But what I love is the foundation that she complemented this very boot camp, because yesterday we spoke about the importance of relationship, starting with self. And that was just the rudimentary to what we presented. And she added on, and it was simply beautiful. Again, I agree with Sister T-Cam. You can make this stuff up, and it was certainly worth the wait. And again, it's a great segue to what we're going to talk about. But rather than look at the negative, which is burnout, and we're going to touch base on it, and I know we're pressed for time, so I'm going to go a little bit more quickly. If we do have time, you let me know, sis. But we're going to start from the other side of the spectrum, which is Sister Denise spoke about self-love. We're going to look at wellness from a holistic point of view and understand what we can do. I believe it was on Sunday's session, we had a segment where we're going to consider the 360, the holistic approach of a person. That's your spiritual quotient, your emotional or mental quotient, and then we have the intellectual quotient. Today, I'm going to kind of shift the intellectual, because we're all very smart. We're going to replace it with a physical, and just physical. What we eat, what we consume, because that makes up a whole person. And then we're going to get into, if we don't stick to the holistic lifestyle, it can lead to the other side of the spectrum. That is burnout, and there are stages to that. Again, I'm just going to give you the nuggets. Hopefully we'll explore further in future boot camps. Okay. So at the end of the day, as I stated, the goal here is to consider the wellness. In my corporate job, one of the many roles an employee from government agency can tell you is that everyone wore like 50 billion caps. That means everyone had a role plus, right? There was no such thing as this is my job and this is the way I'm going to do it. So in my many positions as a corporate executive in healthcare, working for the government, I also was pursuing wellness. And it came at a time where I would interview doctors for a wellness journal. We would write peer-reviewed journal research. I would work with them, assist them, the whole 9 yards. That's how I got really interested in research overall. And one particular physician who was an endocrinologist was removing the sick model that he was taught in medical school. And he was like 30 years in. And he had the moral compass to say, I am not doing my patients much justice. So the goal was to find a more holistic way to deal with diabetes. And, unfortunately, it's coined a Black disease. So it's with that I got really excited at understanding that, yes, indeed, the herbs that were created back in Genesis, every plant, every herb is a healing mechanism, right? We just have to know how to process it. And I also got really encouraged, and I was really curious about the term foraging. When you go out there in the wilderness, what does that look like? We should be able to recognize edible plants and herbs for even survival, in this day and age. So all of that culminated, and I dived into the whole concept of living a holistic lifestyle, preparing myself to the here and now. I started almost 30 years ago. And when my father was diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 3B, of course, I went deeper into what we can do, right? Because with my faith, I believe by his stripes, he can be healed. And I also knew about applying different things can help. Well, he passed. However, I got to learn more and more. It did extend his time, but he did pass. And every day, everyone has a day and appointed time. And having said that, that's how really I am still interested, even though I do business, I am passionate about your health equals your wealth. If you're not a healthy CEO, if you're not a healthy leader, regardless of your role, mom, whatever it is, you cannot perform your function. So your health is indeed your wealth. So my focus here is going to be in understanding. I'm going to share, Sister Linnell, I have a very brief PowerPoint just to help guide us, right, through this. I'm not sure if I'm able to. The last time I had a problem with a PowerPoint as well. Let me see if I can get this on a grand scale. If not, can you see the PowerPoint, even if you don't see me? Oh, no.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So this is the wellness, not burnout, circle of dimensions. And this was identified by Bill Hitler. He was a doctor at the University of Wisconsin. And part of that, he started off with six of these dimensions, including intellectual, emotional, physical, social, occupational, and spiritual. And eventually it was expanded to include environmental and finance wellness. So when we speak about wellness, unfortunately, in the West, Western medicine, it's really a sick model. And then most research would share with you that when we speak about holistic or alternative medicine, we're looking at more Eastern medicine. And most of us are probably familiar with the ancient herbs and Chinese medicine and practice and acupuncture. That all comes and folds under trying to pursue a more holistic lifestyle. But it's important to understand that when we speak about holistic, I would rather say that, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second, I would rather say when we speak about holistic, you're looking at the spirit man, then you want to consider the mental or emotional man. And the next step would be, I would say, in this particular presentation, my focus would be the physical man, right? Taking your exercise, consuming the right foods, etc. So for me personally, because it started with a spiritual quotient, which we alluded to yesterday, it's important that we acknowledge, we spoke about the architect, your creator. You know, we may look at tall buildings and admire the beauty of the architect of each building, while we're not considering the most important architect of all is that he built and created you. And therefore, this beautiful temple is important that we take care of it. And we could improve that SQ or spiritual quotient by simply One way is improving your prayer life. Sister Louise just indicated that when there was technical difficulty, she went quickly in prayer. And that's exactly right. When you know your creator, that you don't have to wait for a particular time, right? You can do it. There's no season where you're out of season, you cannot pray. He is there, the door is open. We should tap into him at any point in time. And understanding your relationship with your creator could be one of the healthiest and most holistic things you can do for yourself. And I would recommend, if you're now getting into the word, you may want to spend more, increase your prayer life. If you're now reading the word, you may want to increase your reading time. If you're finished read the Bible, then you'll want to study the Bible. There's a difference between reading and studying, because we know this time more than ever, we wrestle not flesh and blood, right? It's principalities and powers and rulers of dark places. According to Ephesians 6:10-18, the importance of putting on the full armor of God. And we know that the word is the sword when it comes to that particular text. It's important that we are armed with the word. The only way we know the word is if we read and consume the word, which is the Bible itself. I'm just going to jump around here. Also, we want to consider faith. Faith comes by hearing, according to Romans 10:17. So once we hear the word, we must then be doers of the word. We must do something about it. So Sister Louise was obedient to what she heard, helping the community. So now she's doing something about it. And Sister Linnell and I are here as her co-conspirators, helping whichever way we can as well. So it's about being obedient to the word. And in the masterclass in February 18, we spoke about the seed. And part of my introduction to self-love is understanding the power of the tongue. We have one tongue. We use it only to edify and build up. And like everything else, if you're used to using your tongue as a weapon, lashing out, the only way you can change that habit is by being intentional and then learning to hold yourself back. And when you go through the entire process in adopting the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22 and 23, you can certainly begin the transformational spiritual process to heighten your indeed SQ. And because we're living in perilous time, it's important that we do the work, we do not abandon the word, but make sure that's front and center in our walk. We're now going to go into the EQ. That's emotional intelligence, tapping into the mental. This particular term and subject really became front and center, I think, in the early 70s, and it was popularized by Daniel Goleman. I studied this in both MBA and my doctoral program. And part of it is understanding that if you are a leader, it comes with being able to perceive, interpret, demonstrate, control, evaluate your emotions, and being able to understand what the other person is going through, put yourself in that person's position. There's a common saying, walk the mile in someone's shoe, you would have an understanding. So that's something that we want to adopt if we're not there yet. Many of you already know that part of my practice, we call for self-reflection. I am not going to tell you who you are, what you need to take out and put in. You know yourself best. You get to decide what that looks like and then do the work, right? So whether it's the boardroom, the playroom, the classroom, emotional intelligence will indeed help bolster overall wellness because you have a different mindset. It's all about adopting a different way of thinking. So some of the most common reasons you would, of course, want to adopt and have a more robust emotional intelligence to match your intelligence, that is your book sense, would be to succeed as a leader because it's needed. You definitely want to understand yourself more, and it does that because it requires you to self-reflect. It's great when starting a new business and interacting with individuals, trying to network, trying to partner, collaborate. And it doesn't mean that you become boo-boo the fool, where people walk all over you. What it does mean is that you understand where you are. You give the person an opportunity to think, speak, present their case. And on my radio program, I speak about win-win. And there's a level of reciprocity. Reciprocity is not when you take, and when another person expects it in return, you back off. reciprocity is you take a little, you get a little. You set up a win-win, and you go into negotiation understanding that you can both create a win-win. If not, it's important to walk away before you sign a contract, and that contract could be written or indeed oral. But emotional intelligence will indeed help give you a stronger, holistic approach to working, playing, interacting with family, friends, including in your fellowship community, right? Your church, whatever that is. I do have a couple of vision killers that I want to share, but again, interest of time, I wouldn't unless Sister Louise thinks we have time. So I'm just going to jump
Sure.
into.
Go ahead and share it. We have
Okay.
time because
have
we
time?
didn't have a guest and we have time. Share it.
Okay. So normally it's about 10 or 15. My coaching practice, depending on what the client presents, one of the things I will share with them is, are you aware of vision killers? And then, of course, they'd be like, what? And I'm like, kind of explain what that is, right? So it's almost like saying an adult come into a room, speak to a classroom full of kids, and they become the dream killers for the kids, right? One kid said, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be Wonder Woman. I want to be this. And even including when we look at race, right? If a European comes into the classroom and is mainly an urban setting, let's just put it that way, and this person says, I want to be a doctor. And the European says, well, honey, you cannot be a doctor, but you could be a garbage collector. Although there's nothing wrong with being a sanitary engineer. My mom taught us, be the best if that's what you want to be, but don't be a dream killer. So similarly, if you don't manage your emotions and your mental wellness, you too can become a dream killer, officially is known as vision killer. So there are a couple of things. I'm just going to do 5, normally it's 10 or 15 in this exercise. If you have your pen and paper again, if it applies to you, you could place 1. If it doesn't apply to you, you place 0. And again, at the end, one person could come off mute and just share and go through that reflective process if, again, we have time. So the first one is living by the adage, right? That's an old saying. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Do you find that phrase to be part of your vocabulary? And it's similar to saying you're not leading by example. So you want your employees, or you want your children, or you want your partner, your husbands, your significant other to do as you say, not as you do. If that applies to you, put a 1. If it doesn't, leave it blank, or you could assign it a 0. The second one, focusing on too many things at a time. In the 80s, I think in the professional world, if you could multitask, and I'm great at multitasking, but guess what? It causes burnout. So during, I think, the turn of the 21st century, especially in healthcare, decisions were reversed about what can build emotional resilience. And multitasking, we had someone designated patient safety officer. That person also helped and worked with clinicians and nurses. And the goal was not to multitask. The goal was to try to do 2 or 3 things at a time, but not 50. That can lead to burnout. So focusing on too many things at a time. If that applies to you and you feel like Wonder Woman, place a 1 doing it. If it doesn't apply to you, leave it at 0. The third one, pushing too hard on the task and forgetting the people. As a leader, as a parent, sometimes it's all about getting that A or winning that soccer game, that basketball game, that race game, right? Getting into law school, getting into medical school, and not understanding the pressure that you're putting on that child. Or if you have a husband, bring home the dough, bring home the donuts, bring home the bacon, whatever you want to say, that extra pressure can cause that person to falter and be nervous. So if you're a leader, if you have your own business and it's like, okay, we have to hit that 500,000K revenue this year. Come on, guys, let's get that sales up. But you're not considering what's going on in the person's life. So that's pushing too hard on the task or goals and forgetting about the people. At the end of the day, we are all dealing with people, even though we're about to break into this era of artificial intelligence. I'm still a person. I have feelings. When I go home, I have a family. regardless whether I'm married or not. It's still family. I have things that's going on as a single person. I don't have to be married to still have problems. We all are going through whatever that is, and you have to put that into consideration. Number 4, giving inconsistent directions. So that would look like, can you do this? Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Could you go left? Actually, I'm typing you an email. Could you go 2 blocks down? Change your direction consistently. So you're inconsistently given direction. And this is frequent, of course, with employees. And that's because as a leader, you may not be the most decisive, and you may have paralysis analysis. You're not admitting it to your team, so it looks like that. If that's you, giving inconsistent direction, put a 1, if not, it's a 0. And the final one, just to make it brief, focusing on the detail and forgetting to tell the whys or the big picture. And I remember in corporate, our leaders were big on that, right? Because if they knew the big picture, they'll look as if they know what you're talking about. And if you would give them just a glimpse of what they're talking about, this is the access of information that you have. The more information you give individuals, the more they can research, become more aware, be more prepared. They're able to present more. And there's a win-win. So my experience in corporate, what leadership was all about was based on, you know what you need to know for that moment in time. If the next hour you need a little bit more information. So it's like spoon feeding that employee. And sometimes as a parent, you might do that. If the child is too young to hear certain information, God forbid, let's just say there's a divorce. And you say, you know what, let's not share it with you. That's understandable. So it depends on the situation. But focusing on the detail and forgetting to tell the big picture as to why we have to do this. What's the vision? If you don't share, put a 1. And if it's not applicable to you, then you could put a 0. So with those 5 statements, if anyone want to jump off mute and share your thought process when I mention all 5, just very briefly, we can do so. The goal here, of course, is to add up. Out of 5, if you have 3 or more, you may need to build more on that emotional intelligence. And it's not an indictment. That's why I encourage in my coaching practice, let's do the self-reflection, think about it, and whatever your answer, don't blame me. These are your answers. And then let's get to work. The best part is about getting to work, and it's about starting, rolling up your sleeve, because it's about action. And bad habits can be broken. And we know, according to James Clear, author of the book Atomic Habits, if you do 1% daily, if you do it for a full year, the formula that he gave us and he shared with us is that you can improve 37%. So if you really want to change, we recommend 2%, 5%, 10%, 15% invest in you for that period of time. So be going once, twice. Anyone wants to jump off mute to share their thought process before we get into the physical quotient as part of that 360? Any takers? Everyone is shy today?
No, I am not.
Okay. That sounds like my other sister, Sister Betty. Welcome. She's an educator, folks, so she knows a lot.
Yeah, I'm back and forth because I'm also doing schoolwork, but
Yes.
I listened. So the first one, do what I say. I am very intentional. I have kids. So I don't want to be the person that will say something else and do something totally different, because I want to lead by example. I'm also a teacher. I have to lead by example. My kids look at everything I do. When I say kids, my kids that I teach look at everything I do and say. So I want to make sure I lead by example. Now, the second one, it may not work for everybody. Yes, I do get burnt out. Ask my sisters, but I am a multitasker. Multitasking works for me. Yes, I do get burnt out. And that's when the Lord said, Betty Ann, relax. Whatever may come my way, he will use that to make me relax. In regards to number 3, considering pushing too hard with what?
On the task and forgetting the people. Focusing on the task.
Yeah, I'm very people oriented. So therefore, I'm more about people than in regards to the task. Everything I do with the will of God, I try to be very intentional. Intentional because I know I have to be an example. So therefore, people matters to some extent because I want them to grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and also physically, if so forth. Given inconsistent directions, no, I'm very rigid. And my sisters know I am. So I'm very intentional. I know what I want. So therefore, I'm very direct. There's no more than one answer. There's just right to the point. This is exactly what I need. I'm very focused. I'm very driven oriented. The last one, focus on the big picture. I am very much on the big picture. As I said before, I do have a family. I'm a teacher. So my goal is always about a big picture. Whatever I ask, I'm very intentional because I don't want to be misleading anyone. So no one can say Miss Nelson said blah, blah, blah. No, I'm telling you what I say so I can quote exactly what I say because I'm very much intentional about what I do and what I say. And that's it. So I have 1 out of 5.
Yeah, very good. And I see that and I could attest to that. And I myself, I'm a multitasker. Since I left corporate, I started changing that and understanding that it may work, but there is a breaking point. And part of it we're going to discuss is the physiological part of it. Okay, so we have to work on that, sis. Okay, but very good. Thank you so much. 1 out of 5. So if you were to score above 50% or more, understand there's work. For me, it's always about doing the work. Even if it's that 1 point, sis, you definitely have to bring it down a little bit because, again, health-wise, heart-wise, it's not a good system that it put in place in the 20th century. Okay,
but can I say something? I know if I can interject for a second, I know my sisters would always tell me, Betty Ann, you cannot do everything. And I know, and I guess because I cannot blame it on being an A-type personality. I've always been like that. But my struggle is learning how to relax. My struggle is learning how to take self-care. My sisters always tell me self-care. That is my honest struggle. Yeah. And I'm trying. I mean, every day is a new day. So today, right now I'm doing a lot. So today is not one of those days I'm self-caring, but hopefully with the grace of God, it will soon happen. It's hard. For me, it's hard.
Like everything else, the one key word I heard you say in most of those responses is intentional, and therefore self-care is the same way. And we go back to what I stated and I've always shared with you. It's like that person, that mother and child on an airplane. You have to put on your mask first. It's for the greater good, regardless of what it may seem like the here and now. The greater good is to take care of yourself so you have a longer time on this earth with your kids and your family. And that's the concept. So now we're going to get into the physical quotient. Thank you so much, sis. I love you. Thank you. And the physical is exactly that, how we eat, the lack of exercise, not moving enough. We all know that Black Americans are plagued the highest with diabetes and high blood pressure and the stroke and high cholesterol. And a lot of it comes based on our diet. We also have depression and other symptoms of emotional distress. And even though there's a church in every corner in our community, it is still an overall challenge. So indeed, we have to sound the alarm. So just for some quick tips, I advocate for being an intentional shopper. Here's that word again. That means what you plan to do starts with your shopping list. And if you can't remember, that's okay. Leave room for something else. Write it down or put it on your notes, on your phone, but be intentional about what you buy. What you buy in the grocer is what you're going to bring to your dinner table. So if you buy healthy greens, mixed fruits and vegetables, that's what you're going to have to eat. If you buy fried foods, shrimp, high in cholesterol is the clean food anyway, but we know people, they're still after the catfish and the shrimp. You bring it on the table, that's what you're going to have. And if you're caring for a family, they're going down with you because of a poor diet, right? So don't do it. Start here that I'm going to be a better shopper, self-reflect. Am I the one that's buying still white bread, white flour, white sugar? And if you are, you want to move away from that. Try more multigrain and double check the trans fat. always double check the nutritional content that's on the back of the food. Monitor the amount of sodium that's in that tin Progresso soup or whatever you have, okay? All of that adds, and you're bringing that home. If you buy cookies, that's what you're gonna snack on if you are snacking when you have a problem. If you were to buy cucumbers, guess what? You'll have a beautiful cucumber salad. And again, that's one way to eat healthy and consume foods. We want to consider the food pyramid. I would say we don't have enough time. All I'm going to say is that it originated in Sweden, and I think that should be enough said. It wasn't meant for us. And one of the things I would like to add is that we want to consider, rather than that 3 square meals we were told about, try going to 2. Try intermittent fasting. That's a beautiful way of lowering your glucose, reducing weight, cutting calories, and getting back on the right track. If you could reduce it to 1 meal a day with a couple of healthy snacks, that indeed will be the way to go. Exercise regimen, as simple as walking, is the way to go. If you like running, jump rope. If you have a dog, take the dog out. That's the way to go. If you have weights, as we get older, I'm still doing weights. And if you don't have your own weights, just get your water bottle and use it to exercise, right? If you get your 500 milliliter Poland Spring water bottle, that could be your weight. So you don't have to get all sophisticated and get an entire gym, but understand that if you add weights to your exercise regimen, as you get older, you're strengthening your bones and your joints, and you're less susceptible to osteoporosis and those other bone degenerative diseases. And now I want to get into understanding that everything that we do as we inch from a holistic wellness, we're moving more into burnout if we don't keep on the left side of the gauge. If we go more into the middle, we are going to slowly trek into the burnout. And now that's where we're going to get into. Burnout is a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. It could come on at any time. Many of you might be privy to it during COVID, during the pandemic. I was in healthcare. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Every time I talk about it, I get little flashbacks. But at the end of the day, burnout is real. And the goal is we want to try to move away from getting far into burnout as much as possible. According to the psychology today, there are like 5 stages of burnout, right? It doesn't just get into burnout. It slowly leads from the holistic, it slowly leads into burnout. So there's a honeymoon stage. And during this period, you're excited and enthusiastic, whether it's about a job or whatever. You feel great. You put in 14 hours, you put in 16 hours, and it's just wonderful. One task after the other. And I know this is very important when it comes to business owners, because a business could fail within 3 to 7 years of being in business if you don't put in the day or time, the amount of time. However, I would caution you, right? There's still things you can do monitoring your health, living a holistic lifestyle, and still minding your business. The second stage is the onset of stress. You should know your stressors, what are the triggers, and if that's the case, long story short, you definitely want to stay away from that. You have chronic stress stage. By this stage of burnout, you're starting to get more frustrated and exhausted about everything. This is probably when your child come into a room and you yell and scream and you're like, I can't believe I just did that, right? You should begin to think that I'm slowly getting there. Or you pick a fight with someone and it was really about cleaning the plate. Really? A plate? We could just wash it. But if you make it important, if you make it that focal point, that becomes a problem. So that's moving towards a more chronic stress stage. And then you have the burnout stage is in full force, right? That's stage 4. Symptoms of chronic stress: your muscle, your back, your neck pain. Your body is telling you something, and your body does not lie. Every pain you feel is a signal of something that you may not necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole. So every pain you feel, you should be checking it out to determine why am I feeling that pain, right? Now, if you just came from the gym and you worked out for 2-3 hours and you did 50 pounds, there will be pain. That's a different type of pain. But we're looking at that neck pain, that back pain, the headaches, right? We were doing the boot camp, and when I came on, I told Sister Louise, oh, I had a little headache, right? And I don't necessarily suffer from headaches. So I had to pay attention to that due to a lack of sleep. So it doesn't just come on. It takes stages. So you need to be mindful, you need to monitor and be intentional about what you do. And of course, you have habitual burnout, where you just sometimes crash and burn. And to me, this is likened to, we used to do orientation for clinical students, and federal law required a certain number of hours that a resident, a doctor in training, a medical student needs sleep. And that's one rule we were required to monitor, because in medical school, it's so competitive, they were required to get a job done, but still rest. And a lot of individuals would rather violate that rule and law and get ahead and suffer the consequences maybe weeks, months in, right? So that's the habitual burnout. You kind of live with it. It's almost like someone who is an alcoholic, but works very well. You will never know that he's an alcoholic because he or she is a functional alcoholic. He or she works very well. Is it healthy? No. Is it good? No. But they're still getting the job done. And possibly you may not know that that person is a functional alcoholic. It's the same process thinking when it's habitual burnout. So we encourage you not to get into that level. I described some of the symptoms. Again, interest of time, I'm just going to go straight into factors that contribute to the burnout, which include work hours, a lot of work-related stress, whether you're a business owner or not. If you're working 9 to 5 and still coming in to help your kids and do your own business, that will also create burnout. Consider the personal stressors as well as lack of support. We spoke about, I believe, in Monday's session about the Wonder Woman syndrome, right? So it's important to have that family, that village, have that support. If not, consider your spiritual community. And understand that burnout can cause physical, mental exhaustion. It can cause you to pull away and become less friendly overall. So you want to monitor who you are during that time. If you're considered an extrovert and you've pulled yourself away, that can also be cause of burnout as well. So if your family members, if your kids are saying, "Ma, you look different, you sound different, you're acting different," that could also be burnout. Okay, so we definitely want to consider coping with burnout. You want to take breaks, go on vacation. I call respite. One of the things I recommend on my Instagram when I first started out, even with your own business, and yes, you have to put in the hours, but every 3 months, you better decide where you want to go. Do a little respite. It could be a long weekend with your team. It could be work related, but not. Make it fun, change the meeting function, location. It's getting warmer, take your meetings to the park, right? You could always meet near water. That always have a way of very comforting effect. So there's so many different things you could do. Self-care, my sister spoke about. Care for yourself, you have to. Sister Denise spoke about it as well. And it may not necessarily look like, getting your cuticles done and nails done, the whole 9 yards, but it's a level of self-care. Definitely getting enough sleep, having the right diet, dedicating time for exercise regimen. I would say spa massages, if you could afford it, or if you have a loved one to give it to you, and continue pushing forward. And ultimately, it's about finding that support. So the reality is burnout is real, but I hate to say it's still a choice. The scripture tells us in Deuteronomy 30:19, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I've set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life and live. And I would recommend today, my call to action, choose wellness, not burnout, and live. All praises to the Most High. Family, thank you very much for your time. And I yield back to Sister Louise.
Gosh, thank you so much. That was great because you gave us so much information, Sister Cheryl, Queen Cheryl, about how we can take care of ourselves. And today, as I said, we're talking about mental health. And I know you saw that beautiful introduction from Denise Francis in the TED Talk, where she talked about how she was able to do healing. And we know a lot of us, we are afraid to go to therapy. And that's what's so sad, that fear. We have that fear factor. What are people going to think? And I have a quick testimonial to give you, and I hope you don't mind. I want to talk about our children, and let me share this with you right quickly. I have a little bit more in this PowerPoint that I want to share, so give me a moment here, and I'm going to bring that up again here. Health and our wellness. It's a lifeline for us. And I had this little quote here where somebody had put this on social media. And you have to recognize you are a queen. You deserve to be in spaces and relationships that make you happy, that feed your soul and help you grow. You are worthy of connections that are loving, nurturing, and genuine. Before you settle for anything less than, remind yourself that the places you visit and the people you journey with through life should make you feel safe, loved, and enough. And we had that in our presentation on the master class back on for Black History Month, January 18th. So I'm sorry, February 18th. I'm putting Black History Month in January. And something we know that we are in a psychological warfare. And this is something from Malcolm X warns us more than 50 years ago. This is the media, and irresponsible media. It will make the criminal look like he's the victim and make the victim look like he's the criminal. If you aren't careful, the media will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppression. So, this is part of our mental healing. We have to recognize the oppressors and what they're doing to us, and because we are in a psychological warfare, and like Dr. Joy DeGruy said, we've been there for years, and it's time for us to unslave ourselves, like Dr. Miles Monroe say. And that's why this is so important for us to recognize and realize we got to unslave ourselves. We've been enslaved almost 500 years. We just don't have the visible shackles now. But so many of us are still enslaved. And I wanted to bring this, and we had suggested we be coming back quarterly talking about this, but I just wanted to go through this psychological flexibility just quickly with you, because this is something we can dove into, and we can do role playing when we come back, and we can also just share with one another and do more engaging, because we'll have more time when we are more focused. And that was where I fell short too. I had zeros in all of those, but my focus, sometimes I'm multitasking, and it's difficult when you are multitasking to keep that concentration. So we have to learn how to be acceptance and taking control of our feelings, and how sometimes to detach from our thoughts by reflection within the positive versus the negative, and the reality of our fears and our insecurities. And also be focused, like it says here. Are you connecting with the now, or are you stuck in the past? And so many of us are sad, and I use that as an acronym for stuck and drowning, because we are not focusing like we should. And many of us are so stuck in our past, we can't focus on our present. We have to live in the now, and we have to be very self-observing how we look at what we think. And we got to start doing that and thinking about that, and the values we bring, our role models versus real models, because some of us are following the wrong role models. We're not following those positive, real models, and that's who we should be following. And the self-nurturing with clarity. And a lot of times we don't have that clarity of who we are. And that's why this is so important, like we did with the life management, learning who we are and the values. Do your goals align with your values? Because that's something we need to look at also. And we'll get deeper into this as we do some of the quarterlies that we'll be doing. But I wanted to share this with you because this is all part of our mental health. and how we can heal. And anyhow, that's the end of that. And we're going to go into day 4, which is tomorrow. And I talk about economic empowerment. That's what we're going to express tomorrow. And we're supposed to have a guest come in tomorrow and talk to us about financial matters and how our economic, because whether you know it or not, economics has a lot to do with your mental health. Because if you're not eating properly and you don't have the money to buy the proper foods, it's going to impact your health mentally and physically, like what Sister Cheryl brought out. So we really have to be mindful of those things. And we're pretty much, even though we had some issues and glitches in there, we're still pretty much on target for our timing. But I wanted to give you a little testimony because it's important that we help our children to grow up with mentally being fit mentally. And I can tell you, I'm going to give you a little testimony about myself and my daughter when when it is kind of cute what she did. She was 6 years old, 5 or 6, when my son, who is now 42, was stricken with a rare bone cancer. And my daughter was, at school every day. I would dress her so nice and beautiful. And when I'd go pick her up, I'm looking at her and I said, what happened? Oh, she would look like she got in a barrel full of dirt and everything else. But it was her mental state, because she was in a state of loneliness because I wasn't able to devote that time with her that I should have. So that's something we need to be conscious about. If you do have challenges in your life, think about your children as well, because they really need that devotion also. And that was something that was missing because I was so focused on my son and what was going on with him at 14 with the rare bone cancer until I almost forgot about my daughter and what her needs were. So she started acting out in school. Every day she was pulling these little cards and disciplinary talking in class. That was her way of getting attention. So that's why it's so important. And we don't want to run and put our children on medicines because the teachers can't cope, especially when you tell the teachers. That's what I did. I told the teacher what was going on with my daughter, and the school knew that I had a son that was sick, but that didn't matter. They wanted me to put my daughter on Ritalin. And if you are not familiar with Ritalin, that's a drug that people are so quick to give their children because the powers that may be, these psychologists and social workers are not social workers, but they don't give medicine, but the psychiatrists, they're quick to tell you, oh, they have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And your child may not have that. That was they tried to put on my daughter. And she was in a Christian school, mind you, but they were advocating. And I said, no, because I have a bachelor's degree in social work and I had a background, I did research because I didn't know what Ritalin was. And it's basically candy cocaine that they're giving your children. And these children are walking around lethargic. And I said, oh, no, you're not going to give my daughter. This was the school, the Christian school, pushing this. And I said, no, once I did the research, and I said, no, I'll take her out of the school first before I give my daughter Ritalin, because I had read all about it. So I'm just saying, I'm passionate about this. I even did a speaking engagement about it because too many of our children are being drugged. And it's so sad. And we have to talk to our children. We have to nurture, be that nurturer, pay attention, focus on your children. Thank God I didn't give my daughter Ritalin. She was about 5 or 6, and now she's 34, has her own business, functioning so well. And I thank God I did not give her Ritalin. And my son, a quick story about him, when he was in he's under my conservatorship, as I've said, on each one of these boot camps and also the master class. And I go to see him, and these people are walking around like zombies because they're drugged out in these rehabilitation facilities. Some of them are being raped, just all kind of things happening in these facilities. So you have to be very mindful for your loved ones because their mental health is important. They can't take care of themselves. So I had to talk to these people about my son because they even would lie on me and say, oh, she said you can't have any, you don't want any, she doesn't want him to have any medication. I said, no, that's not true. So it's who said, Barbara, all schools now do this because of getting $2,000 for each student. Yes, it's all about the money. You're right, Barbara. It's all about the money. So this is so important why we have to be proactive when it comes to our children, because if I wasn't proactive, my son would have been walking around like a zombie, like I've seen some of those patients. And these people who are heads of these facilities, they get upset with you. They don't want you to come in and speak up and speak out about your loved ones. So they're all about the money. And the system is by design to keep Big Pharma wealthy. That's what the problem is. It's all about the money. So thank God I did not give my daughter Ritalin, and I was able to just let the school know this is not going to happen. She ended up staying in the school, graduating through the 6th grade. But the interesting part about it, I was told, when I talked to them, I went and took her to her doctor. She had a very excellent pediatrician who's passed away. And she said, well, I'm going to send her to see a social worker. And we did. My daughter, 6 years old at the time, sat in that little chair and she crossed her legs and told the doctor, I am so sick and tired of my brother getting all the attention. I want to be sick just like him. Now, that's the mind of a little child that didn't understand. What if I had been the parent and listened to that school and put my child on Ritalin? These kids that are on that stuff, they're walking around like lethargic and everything, just laying around like it's, oh, like this. And so, parents, just be careful with what you're doing to your children and be more focused, because their mental health is also important. So I just wanted to share that with you because our children are suffering. It's so many of them now that are on these drugs, and it's psychotropic drugs, Ritalin, and I can't think of the other one. So I wanted to share that part with you. And with that said, um, do you have anything to add, Linnell or Sister Cheryl? Because that's my story and it's true and I'm sticking by it.
You're right.
It's the truth.
Okay. Okay. Well, yes, I would like to add, and thank you for that information. And Sister Cheryl, you just really went in depth. It is true that when you start talking about mental health, you can go down a long rabbit hole. But I just want to make some references here, just about 3 references. Number one, we as a people, the Black nation of people, we do have that problem with not knowing how to handle our emotions. We don't know how to gauge our emotions. That's why so many of us explode, kill one another, hurt one another. Why? Because years ago, back in the 60s, they said, we're the most passionate people on the planet. Okay,
Yes.
passion comes from the hurt that when you go back to Dr. DeGruy, the post-traumatic slave syndrome, and it's so much bottled up into us mentally that we have to have a way to get it out, but we really have not learned how to control it, how to handle it, how to cope with it, and how to skillfully navigate our emotions. And I really think that is one of the major things that we need to get into. And Sister Louise, if you ever create a class that deals with that, I think that would be very beneficial, because again, you know how we see the problem and we talk about the problem, but we need a solution. So I would like to see that happen. The other thing I think of is guard your mind and your heart with all diligence, for in them flow the issues of life. And so what are the issues of life? That's everything that pertains to you, everything that pertains to us. And so all of that flows out of the mind. That's where we create. That's where everything happens. And that's why it is so necessary for us to be well, so that we can create positivity. We can, create things that are beneficial. You know what I mean? So I just would love even that if at some point the three of us could come together as a collective and create a curriculum that would help people in that area. And I listened to Sister Cheryl talk about contracts, even in the business arena. But the truth of it is, we create and have contracts every day consistently all day long with our interactions with people, because we're either giving our power over to people or we're taking power from people. And that is very important, but I think it's subliminal. We don't really actually understand what we're doing. I would love to be able for us to get into those kind of things and break that out and come up with solutions. And so that's my story.
And you're sticking to it. Thank you. This has really been an exciting, we're about to come to the close, and we did get to a little late start. I had the little glitches. That's all about being human. But
Yes.
we thank everyone for coming in and sharing. Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask quickly? Because we're going to wrap it up. We're running a little bit short, but we did start a little bit late and I did have the glitch. So we want to hear from you if you have any comment or any question, and then we're going to get it closed out. So does anyone have any questions or any comments? And we thank you all for coming in and sharing your valuable time with us. We are so grateful and so appreciative. And tomorrow we're going to talk about money, financial matters, because we know we're not spending our money the way we should. We have too much money coming into our hands, almost, I think, close to $2 trillion now. And the 4 C's of keeping your mental health balanced: confidence, control, commitment, and challenge. Thank you, CB. You are so right. That's in the chat. And anybody else, someone else said something in the
Yes.
chat.
Yes,
Let's see.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I enjoyed today understanding that self-love is a skill.
Yes. Yes, yes. Thank you for that takeaway, because it is a skill. We have to learn how to love ourselves. Excuse me, sneezing. We have to learn that self-love. How can you love someone else? And how this is how we unslave ourselves. Thank you so much. Queen Margaret has spoken in the house, Queendom House. So thank you. And again, I'm just so grateful for everyone. TCAM, thank you, Sister Linnell. Ladies, thank you so much. Every day has been a blessing. I continue to learn new things daily. I appreciate you, ladies. God bless you guys. Thank you so much, TK Cam, Cheryl's sister. We appreciate you and we love you all. It's about us loving one another and nurturing each other and having that passion for one another to help us sharpen each other's tools. That's what I believe in. And when I had this vision, I'm just so excited about it. And Nina Monroe, thank you for saying 100. In facts, everybody, I was reading your comments and I tried to share as many of them as I could out of the chat, because you've given so many great comments in the chat. And I'm appreciative of everyone that has come in, and I see there are some that had come in a little bit later after we got started. I thank you all, everyone, for coming in, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, because we're going to talk about some money. Now, I got to have you to come back to talk about how we're spending that money. And for all of you to go to Sister Cheryl, give your website and everything again so they can go to it and be able to, I'll give mine real quickly. I have a YouTube channel, aimed, AIMED, the number 2 Purpose Radio. And go there, AIMED, the number 2 Purpose Radio, and you can get to all of my social media by just going to my website, www.louisehicks, that's LOUISEHICKS.com, and it will take you to all of my social media. Be sure and subscribe, everyone, and share, because we know a lot of nonsense, and as my grandmother says, food talk is being shared on social media. But we're tired of hearing that food talk, because that's not elevating us. And we need to have a vision for some common sense. So go to my website and you'll see all of my social media. From Nina Monroe says, Lord's will, I will be tuned in. Thank you for the fruitful knowledge. You are most welcome. Cheryl's website, book free, 30-minute virtual consultant proficiency resources, LLC. You want to say something about it?
So the website, www.cprllcservices.com. I placed the link in the chat. There's a free 30-minute virtual assessment if you want to talk about growth strategy, start up a whole business, any of the how-to issues that we have. I also have an online radio program, Jumpstart with CPR on One Radio, comes on every Tuesday. If you have a business you would like to promote, if you have an upcoming event, totally free of charge, you can promote your event the way we have been promoting this program. If you want to speak in terms of your business, there's a 15-minute, 30-minute paid service for the promotion. And if you would like to see highlights from Sunday's show on my blog, I placed the highlight on Spotify, where after the show, we had an after party without you ladies. No, just kidding. But we did have an after show, and we discussed in terms of day 1 of that event. If you would like to go to Spotify, just click on the link. It's going to take you there. You're going to have a video in the 3 of us interacting, just sharing our reflections. Part of it was for the radio program, and the other part served as a podcast on Spotify. But we do a lot of great things, and we do have our Level Up business, this is a perfect example where businesses come together, we share wealth of information, and we support each other, again, create win-wins. We also have the Level Up on our leadership coaching. Go to YouTube. It can be found right here on my platform. And you are able to do the work totally free of charge. All you have to do is to follow the video. If you want to evolve and transform from a transactional to a moral and ethical leader, we give you a lot of good nuggets there. And the goal is to tap into your brain power, which is creativity. So if you're burnt out, your creativity will not emerge because you're too exhausted. So it's a healthy mind, like Sister Linnell indicated, will allow creativity to emerge. That's something we promote in our practice, because creativity will give you a competitive advantage. That's it. Thank you all, sisters, for coming.
Absolutely. And we all have our information in the chat. You can even cut and paste it. That way you have it. Sister Linnell, Queen Linnell, lifemanagement1@gmail.com. And I put mine in there, and Sister Cheryl has put hers in there. So you can copy and paste it and go directly to the sites, which is great. And again, if nothing else, we thank you all so much and have a great evening. And remember, your health is your wealth. And we want to thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing this evening with us. And we will see you all tomorrow. Give yourself a great hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And good night. See you tomorrow.